there?
Yeah, Scott, and you said it started on the westbound 10 freeway near the 405?
Yes, it did. That's when we initially heard that there was a following. There was a following for a little bit of this vehicle before they went into pursuit mode, which means they had the helicopter overhead. They followed the vehicle. It came back stolen. They knew something about it. And before they tried to pull it over and went to pursuit, where they went lights and sirens behind the vehicle to try and get them to pull over, it was just in tracking mode. And that's when we first heard about it. It didn't go into a full-on pursuit until they got into the Santa Monica area. And then we might have that video once again. We'll show it to you, just give you an idea. Once they decided to try and pull the vehicle over, they went lights and sirens, and they got right behind the vehicle. Well, at that point in time, that's where the suspect went into oncoming traffic there in Santa Monica. And we had a incident where he did hit a vehicle, but it was a slow rate of speed. There's the video right there. You get the tail end of it. You can tell. But that was so dangerous, they just said, hey, let's back off. And now we're just, on the north end of Malibu on PCH. There's not much traffic here. And it won't be long, it will be up towards Point Magoo. It looks like weather-wise we're going to make it for a little bit. The clouds have lifted, but we are getting, steady rain. I wouldn't call it a hard rain, but it's a steady rain now, and that's certainly making things more treacherous.
As they had a dangerous moment and fell back into tracking mode, of course, Scott, that can always go the other direction as well. Right now, this person seems to be driving, somewhat reasonably in that they're not causing great harm to people around them, but if that changes, they know where it is. And this is what I'm talking about, straightening the curves. I mean, he just takes a line, and it doesn't matter if anybody's right next to him or not. It's just going forward. And if he gets more dangerous, again, they can re-engage whenever they want.
Yeah, I don't know that they believe that re-engaging is going to make it less dangerous. I think that that's kind of what they're looking at as a strategy right now. But you're absolutely right. It looked like he could hold a heading of that vehicle, but then from time to time it swerves, and that's really an indication of drugs or alcohol, something of that nature. If you can't keep the vehicle in a lane, it swerves to the left, it swerves to the right. It's just some incapacity on part of the driver to be able to control the vehicle. We're down to one lane on this stretch of PCH northbound. You see there are 2 lanes southbound, and boy, I tell you, you swerve into oncoming traffic here, a head-on collision with that vehicle, you're probably going to have a fatal. But I don't know that there's that much that police can do at this point in time, except for sit back and watch and hope that no one gets hurt.
And Scott, we can't really see from where that angle as far as what might be coming around those corners. But see, this is one thing that's concerning to me. When you've only got one lane for the truck, and 2 on the other side, that's when it starts to be worrisome to me, when this person who has shown the ability to pass people into oncoming traffic or using the turn lane to pass, that's the worry for me here. If this person is just continuing those kind of actions when it's only one lane, because like you said, you can't see what's coming around that corner.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's extremely dangerous. There's no question about that. And, sometimes if it is drugs and alcohol, the ability of the driver deteriorates. And it gets worse and worse and worse. We've sort of been here. Initially, we saw the suspect be able to out of traffic, not hit anybody, really not swerve back and forth into a lane. And then not too long ago, we saw him actually just into another vehicle right next to him for no reason. He wasn't trying to get around anybody. He just spaced out and, didn't control the vehicle there for a moment, and it pushed another car closer to the side. That could have been dangerous, extremely dangerous. But you're right, as we travel north here, there are some turns. For the most part, not big, wide turns. We're coming up towards Point Magoo here. We'll be in their airspace in a moment. Looks like weather-wise, we can continue northbound. It's about the same. It's a steady rain, but it's not a heavy rain. And everybody is backed off. So I have a feeling that they've got a tracker on this, as I mentioned, and they're just going to let it play out. Right now, it doesn't appear that it's extremely dangerous, to anyone in this area. But even more so, I don't know that getting behind this vehicle with a patrol car wouldn't make it more dangerous, and that's what they don't want to do.
Right. It makes sense for them to back off at this point because, again, as we've been saying, we don't know what they know. They probably have some information that a tracker, as you said, or some information on the driver that could will allow them to get to this vehicle when it ultimately does stop. But where are you abouts now on PCH?
We're not far from Point Magoo. We're about a mile and a half south of the rock there. Point Magoo. We'll be coming up on that in just a moment. Now, it's interesting here now. He's got a vehicle in front of him that is not traveling at a high enough rate of speed for him. And look, he's just pushing him out of the way.
Look at that.
So it did split from 1 lane to 2 lanes northbound and now just 1 lane southbound. But boy, that's a tight squeeze on the southbound side, oncoming traffic. Just that double yellow line there. And if he swerves into that now, we are going to have some serious consequences, I'm afraid. There's not a lot of volume out here. There is some traffic coming southbound. We just certainly hope that this driver stays in his lane here and nobody gets hurt.
Well, the concern that I saw in that last little stretch, Scott, is, you know, you would think a person in this manner would use the shoulder to pass somebody, but there were cars parked on the shoulder. So clearly he or she could see the cars on the shoulder, which led to the middle lane. And that's the terrifying thing, is if this person doesn't have the shoulder available and decides to go into oncoming traffic, again, this is the worry part about this and this kind of driving, where even with plenty of lane, the person's still driving right near the yellow lane, yellow line.
Yeah, on top of it right there. Yeah, it could be deadly. There's a truck coming opposite direction.
Look at that.
Yeah, oh, goodness. I mean, it takes your breath away. You know, if this individual does do that, we're going to have a fatality more than likely. And, you know, that's just horrible. Innocent people getting killed in a situation like this. I mean, it's certainly a possibility. Unfortunately, you know, we have to talk about that because we've seen it happen so many times in the past. But you're absolutely right. We're rounding Point Magoo here. You'll see that in just a moment. We will be in Ventura County's jurisdiction here pretty soon. You know, it's interesting the way some of these jurisdictions handle these things differently. So if you continue on PCH, you know, we're going to get into an area up here in, you know, the Ventura area into Oxnard, and it'll be a little different situation as far as some of the traffic. It'll be interesting to see if he stays on PCH or actually maybe gets off into some of these residential areas that'll be available to the vehicle, you know, about 5 to 10 miles north of here.
Well, I mean, as we, you know, I'm trying to remember what is, it's pretty much this type of road the rest of the way up into Ventura County, right? I mean, it's pretty much going to stay this way.
Not
and
many
now
lanes.
he's behind somebody going slower. So this is, again, every time this person has been slowed, that's when the unpredictability takes over.
Yeah, well, once you get a little further north on PCH up into the Oxnard area, then the conditions change a little bit. I mean, once you're past Point Magoo's airspace here, we're going to see that in just a moment. See if they'll get us clearance to go through. I think they will. I don't believe they have anything active right now. But for the most part, you're right. For the next 10, 12 miles, it's going to be a roadway just like this. But there is a point in time where it does get into a more congested area when you get up into Oxnard.
Yeah, and it looks like he's speeding up to go around some of these cars, because it does look like at times he slows down a little bit. I don't know if you have the mile per hour tracker.
Yeah, we can bring up the real-time speed tracker here.
But he does speed up to pass some cars, and when you've got a 2-lane highway, that is a precarious situation. I mean, as you mentioned.
Yeah, and there's no one behind him, so there's really, it's not like he's trying to get away from anybody. There's not even a helicopter overhead any longer, and there's no way the driver can see us. We didn't see a passenger, we're not visible, and I don't believe anyone else is. So it's not like he knows a helicopter is following him or there are any patrol cars, but still he's pretty impatient, and when he comes up on a vehicle that isn't traveling fast enough for him, he really starts to speed up and make his way around that individual. A lot of cases we've seen earlier, regardless if it was dangerous and into oncoming traffic or on the shoulder. Right now, though, it looks like the separation is being consistent, and it appears, at least for now, he's content to travel at a pretty slow rate of speed. What's the speed, real-time speed tracker tell us? Yeah, 40 miles an hour or so.
Well, and that's, as Giovanna mentioned, it does calm you a bit, but see, right here is when he will pass. If he'll stay the distance, but if he's got that left turn lane to go around somebody, that's when he does seem to accelerate. And I think your word was perfect. He gets impatient, and he just wants to get around. So here's another opportunity for him to see that spot and take it. Although going around that corner we won't make it. Might be a bit tough.
Yeah, and then there's a decline here and heading into Camarillo, right?
Give me altitude, if you would.
So Scott is trying to make some altitude so he can get a more clear signal. But to your point, Giovanna, yeah, now it's a matter of if the speeds become unmanageable for this person as they're trying to drive, but at least they've got 2 lanes here. And so there for a moment, it's just that area, there's always seeming to be some construction going on there. As you head up into the Ventura area, it can get down to 2 lanes. You worry about people who are working. And then the conditions themselves are not good for driving in the best of it. But it's rainy and messy.
It is raining, and as he moves into Ventura, there'll be more rain. And I was talking about that decline in Camarillo into Camarillo. That's a pretty steep decline, and we don't know how much control he has of that vehicle.
With that, and especially if it's empty. If it's an empty vehicle, this is the video of earlier, and this is one of the reasons why they went to tracking mode. The person drove into oncoming traffic. You'll notice, see how everybody had to back up to get out of the way to avoid being hit.
And he clipped a car.
And he did clip someone. So if this, and then by the way, there was a lot of anxiousness immediately after this section because the person would drive into the turn lane for upwards of a mile.
That's right.
And just put a lot of people at risk.
As we see there, he's in the middle lane there and actually drove against traffic for a little bit as well. And his speeds have been a little bit erratic. I mean, mostly moderate rates of speed, but he has picked up.
And this is the section that you were talking about. But when he went into the oncoming traffic or into the turn lane and then came upon the end of that turn lane and nearly had to hit the pylons in the middle,
that's right.
He was coming over, and that's when the people around him were all at risk. But I think Scott Reif is back now as we're in Camarillo with this, and the speeds could pick up on a decline here, Scott.
Yeah, the speeds haven't changed too much, and now we're on a stretch of PCH through Camarillo. As I mentioned earlier, we're at Point Mugu Air Base, basically just traveling right over there or through their extended center line. And it'll continue to look just like this for about another 5 to 7 miles, and then PCH sort of changes a little bit as far as the congestion or the area that you travel through. But right now, there's a big center median, so we don't quite have the danger we had when PCH was down to just 3 lanes, 2 southbound and 1 north. Or the opposite. And I think as far as the danger of him hitting oncoming traffic, that has dissipated just a bit. We'll bring up the real-time speed tracker once again. I would imagine the speed limit here is 65. And so you can tell he's traveling a little faster than the speed limit, but not excessive rates of speed. At least we haven't seen that. And there's little to no volume on this entire stretch of PCH all the way up into Oxnard from what I can tell. There's a lot of cloud cover up ahead. You're going to see us lose the shot, not our signal. We're high enough now. We shouldn't have a problem, but you're going to see these clouds in just a moment that will obscure the vehicle from time to time. But there are a lot of offshoots, there are a lot of streets to get off now, whereas when you're in Malibu, you really couldn't get off on too many streets, or else if you went off the wrong street, you were going to be into a dead end if you didn't get off on something major like Malibu or Canaan. But now there's a lot of offshoots if the suspect decides to get off of PCH. And there's a big center median. There's 2 lanes in both directions. And fortunately, there's not a lot of volume.
We're also starting to see the speed in comparison to traffic, because we saw one person easily pass, and then this truck here is going about the same speed. So at 72 miles an hour, he's not, the driver of the box truck is not the fastest vehicle on the road right now. You're in highway traffic.
And the question now also as he moves into Ventura is what will Ventura County sheriffs do, how they will handle this situation?
Scott, have you seen any change, or have you seen any helicopter, air travel, any on-the-ground vehicles, or have they pretty much taken the tack that everybody else has to this point?
Well, it's interesting. There's no helicopter that I'm aware of overhead. We're in Ventura County now, so it'll be interesting to see how they handle it. There is a patrol car, though, coming up pretty quick, and he's about, I would say, I don't know, a quarter mile behind. You look out your window there, Marcel, you'll see him. It's kind of too far for us to open up. We might be able to. It's going to be way off to your left. What's going to happen here in a moment is we're going to have to travel right on top of some clouds, some low-level clouds. So from time to time, we're going to lose the vehicle, but the vehicle will come back in, and that patrol car I was talking about is coming up at a rate of speed in which he's going to intercept the truck. So it will be interesting to see how Ventura County handles this. We can lose altitude now and go through that hole there because of our signal. We'll be fine here. And that's a CHP. It's not Ventura County Sheriff, so it's CHP. And it'll be interesting to see, just how they handle this as we come up into this area of Ventura County. And there's the clouds we were talking about. Fortunately, we can descend quite a bit now and still get our signal because of where we're at. At least I hope so, and we're trying, but you get an idea what we're dealing with as far as the weather conditions. It is very wet now. I certainly wouldn't call it a hard rain, but you can tell how slick the conditions are. And now we're coming up into that area where, we're going to start to cross over, and we're going to head up into Oxnard, and then that's that area I talked about where PCH does go through an area where there's a little more congestion. And now there are 4 units behind them, so it looks like they may engage. They may engage the suspect as we continue north. We're still in Camarillo. Got a ways to go before we're in Oxnard. But they may re-engage. Open up, Marcel. Give me a wide shot. There are 4 vehicles total, patrol cars. And you're going to see one come at the bottom of your screen there. They actually stopped at the intersection, so go back into the truck. They're staying back and not letting the suspect see them. So at this point in time, they really have not re-engaged, but it looks like they're ready to if they decide to. And go ahead, Marcel, and tilt up with the camera. And this will give you an idea of what's up ahead. We talked about this a little bit. There's going to be a little more congestion on PCH as you head up towards the 101 freeway. And so as we head through there, we're going to see some stoplights. We're going to see possibly more pedestrian traffic. And the risk is going to get higher once again now. It'll be interesting to see what the demeanor of the suspect is and just how desperate he is if he comes up on an intersection up ahead where we have a red light. And that looks like that may happen here in just a moment.
Okay, Scott, we're going to wrap up coverage of this on the linear portion, ABC7, and return our viewers to regular programming. But we are going to continue this chase on our streaming, ABC7 LA streaming app. So if you'd like to continue to watch this, you can join us on our streaming platform. And right now, we're going to return you to regular schedule of programming, along with Giovanna Lara, Scott Reif, and Philip Palmer. Thank you for this special coverage of this chase that is now into the whoa, and we gotta do. I'm just going to ask one more time if we want to stay with this for a moment, or if we're going to still break away. We're going to keep with this just for a second, Scott, because now this is becoming
traffic
good and oncoming traffic around.
This is the behavior that was happening earlier, and it's just come right back. So we are going to stay with this now. Yeah. We have officers that have engaged right behind, and the suspect now that has met traffic resistance has taken a much more aggressive measure. Scott.
Yeah, this is just senseless because the patrol cars weren't right behind this individual. So whether he sees the patrol cars or not, he's going to drive like that. And that goes into, the thought process of the CHP at this point in time, who's the lead agency, because they are intercepting this vehicle now. And, you think about the strategy. I mean, you never want to second guess them. But when they get right behind this vehicle, I have a feeling this is going to start to drive much faster than he was driving before. And there's a lot of, we're coming up, we're still in Camarillo. We're about a mile south of the 101 freeway headed northbound on PCH. But the real dicey situation is when the suspect comes up to stop traffic and a red light. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here, see if he gets on the 101, exactly how he continues to proceed. The patrol cars, though, you can open up now, Marcel. I think you'll be able to see them real quick. It'll give you an idea just how far behind they are. Keep going to the left, if you would, to the camera. Just let him come out of the screen for a moment. The patrol car is going to go in right there. So there's 4 of them. You go back to the truck now. There's 4 CHP units behind the truck, and the truck does appear to be accelerating. So there's a good chance he sees them now in the side mirror and is deciding he's going to drive faster. And I think that's really one of the reasons the LAPD and LA County Sheriff's deputies decided to back off on this. They didn't want to encourage this individual in that truck, in that heavy truck, to drive even in a more erratic nature. Now, if he stays in the right lane, he's going to get on the 101 freeway traveling southbound. That'll be a turn onto the 101 freeway, and it looks like that is going to be the case. So CHP will more than likely engage on the freeway. I believe they're going to do that now. It'll be interesting to see. But the vehicles on the 101 northbound, we're in Camarillo, pretty much on the border of Camarillo and Oxnard. And looks like he's headed back down towards Los Angeles. If he continues on the 101 south, through Camarillo, and then, of course, Thousand Oaks, Woodland Hills, that area. Yeah. But on the freeway now, and you can see the patrol cars are behind him. Yeah,
and he's been at this now an hour, right? Because you said we picked it up at 11:30, but you were watching it. There was law enforcement on his tail before we picked it up, so an hour now.
Yeah, about that, maybe even a little bit, a little bit longer, more than an hour. The speeds here, though, we talked about the weight of that vehicle. We don't know if it's full, but, that's a big truck regardless. The inertia, the speed vehicle, if he's involved in an incident at speed, it's not going to be pretty. There's no question about that. Traffic up ahead on the 101 northbound is very light. The rain is sort of dissipated for the moment. It's not as heavy as it was in Malibu. And it looks like on the 101 north, I don't see any. I can see up into the pass on the 101 north.
But he's on 101 south, isn't he?
Delays.
Is he on 101 south?
He's 101 south.
The 101 freeway southbound.
Yeah.
He's headed southbound on the 101, headed towards Los Angeles. He was on PCH northbound. Once he got to the 101, he picked up the 101 freeway south. We're right at Beam Camarillo Airport now. We're just coming up on the airport itself. I think I will have to break away from this pursuit probably in the next 10 minutes or so. We're keeping an eye on the fuel. And then I think we have our other helicopter, newscopter, that will take over with the coverage. But right now, I mean, you see the speeds. The speeds aren't really excessive. CHP has backed off. They have 4 units behind him in the right lane, but far enough behind him that I don't think that he actually sees them. I think it's going to be a little more difficult for the suspect to see those patrol cars in the far right lane, a quarter mile back, than if they were in the left lane, just with the mirror advantage from his viewpoint. And so at this point in time, they're the patrol cars. We have a pursuit that doesn't appear to be all that dangerous. It looks like he's able to stay in his lane, push in tight. We haven't seen a lot of that swerving, Philip, that we saw earlier. Maybe a little bit, but not excessive. Still able to stay within the lines in his lane. But boy, it was pretty sketchy there on PCH when he was doing a little swerving, possibly into oncoming traffic. And then, of course, we know how desperate the suspect is to get away when he just would not stop in Santa Monica and went into oncoming traffic, hit another vehicle, but again at a slow rate of speed, and no one was hurt. Yeah. And we certainly hope how this one ends. We cover enough of these things, and it's just so dangerous for the public. I think the strategy is a great one, though, to be honest with you. I think it's much better that they back off and don't get right behind a suspect that they know is desperate to get away. And then have him drive at a more erratic pace, because right now he's basically just driving the speed limit.
Right, and you're not wrong about that, but I do wonder about the strategy change and the fact that the CHP showed up for CHP patrol cars. They seemed like they were gaining on him, and then they seem like they've backed off.
Yeah, a supervisor may have saw our picture or somebody's picture and saw that if he did see them, he started to drive more erratically, and they backed off. But they're not behind him at all now. I can't see him at my window. So at this point in time, they've got him tracked. They're making radio calls. They're they're getting the other units in the area aware of what's going on, so that if he gets off on one of the surface streets, they can be prepared. Ventura County Sheriff, they're going to be patrolling this area, so they're aware of what's going on as well. And, at some point in time, the suspect's going to have to stop. He's going to run out of gas. And I really believe, like I mentioned earlier, that more than likely there's a tracker on that vehicle. It's just so many delivery trucks have trackers now. It's sort of unusual for one not to. And that could be one of the reasons they don't have an air unit overhead.
Well, Scott, just as a measure of housekeeping, we know that at some point within the next 10 minutes, you're going to have to go refuel. We will continue to follow this, but we also want to let our viewers know that we're in the middle of GMA3, what you need to know, and we're going to stick with this probably another 5 minutes or so. Then we're going to let Scott go. Then we'll resume this on, actually, it'll be even sooner than that. Okay, so Scott has gone. So, Scott, thank you for safe travels to go to Van Nuys and refuel. And now we are with Newscopter, and we'll continue to follow this along with Giovanna Lara. But we'll stay here on ABC7 for another few minutes, and then we'll resume programming here in just a few moments.
And if you're wondering what we're following, the pursuit of this Lowe's box truck. For about an hour now, we started to follow it at around 11:30. We got word of a pursuit when the box truck was on the westbound 10 freeway near the 405. We know it is a stolen truck. But we don't have much information on the driver, although we do believe the driver is alone in that vehicle, and we're not sure what the content of the truck is.
Well, we saw a few moments ago, those were some of the recorded images of when this person was driving into oncoming traffic there on PCH. It seems as if, and Scott pointed it out multiple times, whenever law enforcement got close enough to that driver that the driver knew they were there, that's when the driver became much more desperate to get away. Throughout, the driver had been best described as impatient. If anyone was in his way, he was willing at any point to drive into oncoming traffic. But just as we were about to break away at Ventura, this is what we saw when the person nearly ran into a pickup truck, drove into a turn lane, and then through an intersection to try to get away from CHP officers, which had just resumed. That's what you're looking at on the right. On the left is Air 7 HD, another helicopter. We don't have a reporter in that helicopter, so we'll just kind of describe what we see. But we've just kind of logistically made a bit of a change as we're about to wrap this up on ABC7.
Yes, and now he is heading on the 101 southbound back towards Los Angeles. But again, we picked it up around the 10 and the 405, and he made his way all the way beyond Camarillo, I believe, turned around and got back on the 101 south.
Which is somewhat interesting, and to be on that narrow lane that is PCH and such a dangerous road, and then turning around and going right back where you came from. It's possible that the person wants to get back into familiar territory. If you're trying to get away from police, you're not going to want to just turn around on PCH because you'd have to stop to do that. So maybe this person knows the area well enough that the plan all along was to get on the 101 and get headed back in the other direction, especially if they don't believe they're being followed at this point, because law enforcement is so far behind them.
Yeah, well, we never know what the plan is for the driver. It never makes any sense to us watching because we believe, and as it often happens, they are caught. And Scott mentioned the possibility that there's a tracker on this truck, and maybe that is one of the reasons also that law enforcement have chosen to sort of pull back. Also, to your point, he does seem to act up aggressively when they gain up on him, so maybe that's another reason too. But even though the speeds aren't super high, we've seen faster pursuits. The fact that he's in this heavy heavy truck, and it looks like an older truck too, so we don't know the condition of the vehicle. That makes it more dangerous, despite the moderate speeds. We can't really get into the mind of the person or necessarily how the person came to the vehicle, but it does strike me as a very high possibility that this person just grabbed one of these vehicles from Lowe's and took off. You can rent these vehicles all the time. They're sitting in the parking lots, and in many cases, the Home Depots and Lowe's are having a lot of theft. So who knows what this is? It also could be somebody's property. They were simply moving, and the person jumped in the vehicle and drove away. We don't know how they got it. We just know it was stolen. Right. We are a few seconds away from wrapping up this on ABC7. We're going to rejoin GMA3, What You Need to Know. But if you'd like to continue to watch this pursuit, you can on our streaming platforms. I'm Philip Palmer, along with Giovanna Lara. And we continue to follow the pursuit of this stolen truck. On the 101 southbound, this is Ventura Freeway. We're not sure where he is at this point, but he was making his way back from Camarillo. And again, this is a stolen truck. This is why authorities began the chase, is what we understand. A single driver in the vehicle, as far as we know.
This is the best look we've had of this person. Yes. It does look like if it's a male driver. We haven't known at this point because of the direction, but that right there is one of the reasons I also think that sometimes he drives somewhat erratically, is he's looking around in the cab, he's reaching across the way, and I just think sometimes he just keeps a straight line instead of following and staying in lanes, because he's just simply driving without concern for anybody around him.
And it's hard to drive these large vehicles. It really is. I mean, you have to have a lot of experience to be able to maneuver them and know where to look and how to see where the other cars are around it.
Oh, the blind spots are remarkable.
Yeah. Exactly. So he's going about just under 50 miles an hour right now, but we have seen some very aggressive driving from this suspect, driving on the wrong side of the road, clipping a vehicle. Nothing serious. No one was hurt, but he is determined to get away.
And I think, you know, you bring up a great point about the lack of being able to see what's around you. And as it looks like this person was thinking about getting off in the exit, but whenever this guy was getting in congested traffic, you're not going to know if somebody is right there to your right. The left side, you probably can see them, but not on the right. And so when he was just driving, I think those were the moments where it just didn't matter if anybody was there or not. He couldn't see them probably, and he didn't really care. So when he would go to the left, there's the chances that he could see what was there a little better. But what's interesting about this right now is, again, it's just freeway speeds. And there are people who are driving faster than this person. And so we've seen cars right now, this little minivan is driving faster and going to pass. So it's not so much the speed, but the impatience and the recklessness and the willingness to do whatever to continue moving forward for this truck that I think is the fear.
That's right. And we have seen evidence of law enforcement in pursuit initially. And then, as you know, we've been saying, they pulled back. And then all through the northern part of PCH, no one was following him. There was no evidence of any patrol vehicles. That would be through sort of the LA County Sheriff's Department jurisdiction. But then when he moved into Camarillo, we did see 4 CHP patrol cars gain on him, try to catch up with him. But then again, we saw some more aggressive driving from the suspect, and they pulled back. Well,
and that was, I think, if those 4 officers, or one, it started as 1 and then all of a sudden there were 4, but if they all of a sudden decided, hey, now may be a chance, they got proof, or they got more evidence that what LAPD and what the sheriff had decided to do was the best course of action. Because as soon as that move was made that we saw on videotape just a moment ago of the driving through Ventura County, right in that Camarillo area, that was proof that, hey, he's still very aware that he doesn't want to be caught.
Exactly. And we have Bruce Thomas on the line, law enforcement expert. Thank you so much for talking with us. Can you shed some light or some insight on the strategy on the law enforcement side in this case?
Yeah, in this case, you're dealing with a vehicle that has substantial weight and size. So some of the typical things you may want to do down the road, like a pit maneuver, are probably out the window. Your best course of action would be a spike strip on this type of vehicle.
Well, and even that is somewhat difficult, isn't it, Bruce, because of the rate of speed? I mean, how you can't put officers at risk, and this vehicle is significant in size, and you know you're going to it could flip. You know, if you all of a sudden lost air pressure, I mean, there's risk involved in that as well, yeah?
That's correct, Philip. Yeah, I mean, ideally the spike strip will deploy what we'll call little pitons inside the tire, which lets the air out very, very slowly. It seems like CHP or Ventura County Sheriffs, it may have a strategy of let's try to slow traffic behind it, create an operational zone area to follow, or maybe do some intervention with this truck.
Wow, look at this. Look at this. There's contact with that vehicle.
Wow.
He ran into another box truck. And what's interesting is he was absolutely looking at the vehicle as he hit him. And now the question is, does that box truck pull over, or does he try to re-engage? And that is the concern there, because now look, the box truck that was hit is still pursuing the suspect vehicle. So, Bruce, how does that change things for CHP? You can't have a road rage incident in addition to a chase.
Yeah, that was very interesting that he hit the other box truck. And the box truck may be under the impression of, hey, I'm going to follow this guy, get information to file a police report.
Right.
So CHP is going to have to intervene and pull that other box truck over.
Yeah, because they have no idea. There's no police around. So the second vehicle has no idea that this is a pursuit suspect. And by the way, doesn't know if the person's armed, doesn't know if the person's dangerous, doesn't know if that truck has been stolen. But now look, he's coming up, and we've got to see what he's got planned.
Yeah, ideally, if you're in that type of situation, get on the phone, dial 911. they'll give you the proper information and dictate what you should do.
And now the box truck is getting off the freeway here. Is this the Thousand Oaks exit?
But look quickly, this person's coming up on an intersection here, and we don't know how they're going to play this, driving through the intersection, passing on the right, all the while. Now this box truck, see if he tries to take an exit and get over there with him. Because again, I keep going back to the person in this Mr. Tire truck thinks that he's got a hit and run on his hands.
Right.
And so now look, he might try to stop him. If he gets in front of the suspect vehicle behind, if he tries to slow down, again, creating more danger for the people around.
And look at this. Oh my gosh. Wow. Another.
This is why you just don't do this, because
he is trying to stop him.
Absolutely. And now look at this. And where is CHP at this point, Bruce? What is CHP thinking?
Look at this.
CHP is trying to intervene as quickly as they can, because this Mr. Tire truck is taking positive action, boxing him in, slowing him down.
But I keep looking at all of the people on the highway right now, watching this occur, not realizing what's going on. And the Mr. Tire truck, again, he thinks he's trying to stop a hit-and-run vehicle, but the person could be armed in that vehicle because it was stolen. We don't know how it was stolen. And then for the person in the second box truck to be rear-ended, at that point, even if you thought you were just getting information, you can't re-engage, right, Bruce? I mean, at some point, you have to understand life and property are at risk here.
But my question is, what can the CHP do about this? I mean, what can they do?
Well, taking Philip's question first.
Okay.
Obviously, you don't want to intervene and put yourself in a position of risking your life or other people's lives. It's a hit and run. Pull out of the side of the road. He doesn't know CHP is there, but they will engage him and get him involved as far as all the legal paperwork and everything. Let CHP do their job. The other thing, and Giovanna, if you could repeat your question.
My question is, what can you do about this situation as a CHP officer following these two guys?
Well, they got to pull over the Mr. Tire truck and get him to disengage.
Yeah. Well, yes.
Yeah. To Philip's point is, they've got to get that other truck out of the problem, because they can't do anything legally or lawfully and safely until you get that other truck out of the way. And at this point, that driver is hell-bent on stopping that truck.
Well, and the danger to commuters anywhere near these two vehicles at this size, if one of them flips, if one of them is spun out and running into other vehicles, you're potentially causing great harm to other people. Look at this. Oh, my
goodness. He is intent on getting that box truck.
At some point, CHP's got to catch up to Mr. Tire and pull him over to let him know what's going on, right?
Yeah, now he's intervening again, and CHP has got to get there and solve this issue.
Well, CHP is following the suspect vehicle. Mr. Tire has now pulled over. We don't know what he's going to do, but I'm sure CHP will be up quickly. So now the suspect vehicle is turning off of the freeway. It looks like that is Windsor or Jan's Road, but has definitely pulled off the freeway. I guess he just decided he didn't want to deal with that other box truck anymore. Air 7HD, if we can get them to pull up on that, that's the suspect vehicle there. The other vehicle is on the highway.
Yeah, the main point to both of your points is don't get involved.
Yes. No, we hear that, and we hope that our listeners and our viewers are hearing that too. Definitely not. You don't want to engage in a road rage situation for sure. And we don't know if the Mr. Tire guy has been on the phone with 911 trying to get, maybe he's trying to get a license plate. Who knows? Well, we saw him try to get this truck to stop.
Well, 911 would tell you immediately to pull back. But this is where the Lowe's truck actually ran into Mr. Tire. Mr. Tire and another box truck were simply driving along. I believe, as anyone, somebody hits you, rips off your front bumper, and then keeps going, you're going to at least follow to maybe get a license plate or something, and then you're going to be upset. But look at the driver on the left. That's the live picture. Again, going through an intersection, shown recklessness on the freeway, the engagement with another box box truck. It's been just an aggressively violent, rageful act between these two guys. And then now you've got this box truck that has left the highway, probably wanting to get away from the other box truck who was just absolutely engaging with him, but continues to try to get away. So, Bill, do we just resume where we were 15 minutes ago, where they pull back and they kind of let this play out again? Or does what happened on the freeway change everything?
Well, I think, he seems to be in some sort of residential area, and he's doing, 40, 50 miles an hour. So could you deploy a spike strip if you can get ahead of this vehicle? Yes, you can. I think the more prudent thing is to be, with the weather also, a little bit of rain in that area, is pull back, go into surveillance mode, have areas flood the area where he is basically going to have the terminus of this pursuit, and then take him into custody through a coordinated response.
When we were talking to Scott Reif earlier, he mentioned a lot of these trucks have trackers on them. Can you talk a little bit about that? And if it does have a tracker, does it make sense just to let him continue on and they catch up with him later? Is that possible?
Yeah, a lot of these type vehicles have low jack or teletrack type issues, so their dispatch can track them as they finish their route or do their route. That's one way to do it. Another way, too, is you have the helicopter, and it's kind of hard to outrun the helicopter unless weather prevents them from doing that. So even if you were to park the vehicle and then foot bail, they're going to take this person into custody, and they're going to follow this vehicle.
Well, as we look at the live shot on the left, the person pulled right out into oncoming traffic. So it's not as if this guy has suddenly begun driving safely. There's still some impatience and aggressiveness that you're seeing right there, passing a truck in the turn lane into what could be oncoming traffic, and now approaching another intersection in that turn lane. We're going to see if this person is going to just go straight. They did. So again, using the turn lane. Why into oncoming traffic there?
Doesn't need to.
Again, this is such a danger for people who have no idea what's going on, and all of a sudden they're staring at the grill of a box truck.
Yeah, this guy has definitely shown a wanton disregard for public safety.
And we talk about the speeds in this circumstance. It's not horrible, but it's still 50 roughly miles an hour in areas that are probably 35, and you're driving one of these big trucks and certainly not making a stop there at the red light, just cruising right on by. I'm not positive if this takes this person back in the direction of the freeway. They may want to get back on the freeway after leaving the freeway due to, there it is, going parallel to the freeway. So if you think about it, Giovanna, in that you get off the freeway because of what was going on with the other box truck, but that's where you wanted to be in the first place.
Right.
So maybe you go through the neighborhoods and now you get back on the freeway. I'm not sure, but it does appear as if maybe that's where the direction that they're going.
Yeah, we saw the freeway in the wider image from the helicopter a moment ago, and I think it's right on the other side of this intersection. So we'll see if he's going to head south. If it's the same freeway, there it is. Oh, no, I guess there's no on-ramp there. So. But
he turned left in front of all of those vehicles in that intersection. So he probably saw the freeway, but as you mentioned, didn't know that there's not an on-ramp right there, unless maybe the right turn there will take you. So, yeah. But again, even that simple move was dangerous because he was in a straight lane and turned left in front of vehicles. And now we're looking at the 101 again.
Not sure if it's south or north.
It is. We're trying to figure that one out. My guess is it's probably going back southbound, just because that was the direction the person was going in the first place, which would mean he might come back up on Mr. Tire again.
So Bruce, what your thoughts?
No, it's northbound. My apologies. It does say 101 northbound.
Northbound. Yeah. So Bruce, bringing you back into this. This is perplexing. Like, how do you handle this?
Yeah, going back to what Philip said, this is a good-sized truck. It's got some weight to it. It may be loaded fully with cargo and appliances or whatever. So that creates another problem for the pursuing officers. But in this case, you just got to kind of follow the vehicle. I think if you get right up on it, and this person knows they're being chased, obviously, you may create a dangerous situation more than what we've seen.
Well, it's just we keep running the video there on the right of the interaction between these two box trucks when the Lowe's vehicle, which is the suspect vehicle, sideswiped a person probably just going about their business and their day-to-day work, and then that person reacted over the course of about 2 or 3 minutes of some very dangerous activity between the two, still just trying to get the Lowe's person to stop. But because the Lowe's person is being chased by police, he was willing to ram the Mr. Tire truck from behind. He was willing to sideswipe them and continue to go. It was a really dangerous scenario for Mr. Tire truck. And I don't even think he realized how dangerous it was, because this vehicle is stolen and has been trying to get away from police for the better part of an hour and a half now.
Likely completely unaware of what was happening when he was hit by that box truck.
And it's understandable. I mean, it is understandable to be that upset and that rageful, I would think, because Bruce, I mean, this was an unprovoked act on that person, and he just wanted them to stop and do the right thing. So it's,
and he's driving a company vehicle.
Yeah, it might even be his business. It might even be his business. But Bruce, I mean, it's hard. I mean, in hindsight, yes, I'm sure you could think, okay, yes, I should have done that differently. But in the moment, I don't think that the person's actions were that unjustified, except when it got more dangerous to people all around.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like he has a license plate on that.
Not anymore.
No.
Remember, it was there was a whole lot going on.
Yeah, that's true.
But Bruce, what when you talk about the unjustified actions?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're upset. You're frustrated. You're like, hey, this guy just hit me. I'm not going to let them get away with that, even though you don't know the other part of the circumstances of this incident. But, you know, we tell people, don't get involved. Discretion is the better part of valor.
Mm-hmm.
Pull to the side of the road, dial 911. You know, you just don't get involved.
What are there charges that someone could be facing in that circumstance? Maybe we can help our viewers with that as well. If you find yourself in something similar to this, because this could happen again within the next 5 minutes. What happens to a person who acts in that manner? Is it usually a slap on the wrist or a ticket or say, hey, don't do that again?
You know, it elevates itself. You have a hit and run misdemeanor, meaning you have now been involved in an accident and you have not pulled over and exchanged information with the other driver. So that's one charge. The second charge, obviously, is the pursuit charge. The other charge, too, if that person in that Mr. Tire truck was hurt and or injured.
Well, I was talking about the charges that Mr. Tire might face. Not that this suspect faces a litany of charges, but for somebody who had that happen to them, I would think that those actions are reasonable, but you mentioned that you tell people don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, are they reasonable? Yes and no. Are you frustrated? Yes. Are you upset? Yes. How dare you hit me and then drive away? But I don't think anybody would look to charge him with anything. Okay. Obviously, he'd get a very stern warning from CHP or Ventura County SO. Yeah.
I mean, I understand following him. I don't think that I would get in front of him and try to stop that big truck. That might not have been the wisest thing to do. And certainly not anything we recommend. But you know, we keep talking around this over and over again. This guy keeps going. He's just nothing stopping him, and it appears like it is getting rainier.
Well, going northbound.
Yeah, northbound.
And I'm not sure how our signal is going to be affected the further north we go. But again, we've been following this since about 11:30 on ABC7, and then now we are on our streaming channel. And when we went to the stream, that's when things took a turn. There were plenty of opportunities for unhappy outcomes during our broadcast on ABC7 when this person was driving in and out of traffic. But once we went to the stream and he ran into that box truck, but that's again, it's almost exactly what we had seen elsewhere. He was driving along, he went to change lanes, and either he couldn't see the box truck or he didn't know what he was doing, but he just didn't care and ran into somebody who was just minding their own business. And then that person, everything started to escalate there for a moment. And that's many times the dangers of these chases is, especially in surveillance mode, the people don't realize there's a chase going on right now. They don't realize what this person has done because they see no police officers. They see no law enforcement. And so they don't know to pull over. And then this person just sideswipes them. and everything changes.
Right. That seems to have been an accident, right? When he sort of clipped that other box truck. But you were talking about when we went from the stream, when we started this, we were going from our linear coverage to the stream. He became very aggressive when he realized that those CHP vehicles were behind him. Every time law enforcement has made their presence known, he ratchets up the aggression and the speed and the weaving and the dangerous driving.
And Bruce Thomas stays with us here. And, you know, Bruce, when we had LAPD, we had LA County Sheriff at one point. We had Ventura probably taking a look at this, although we didn't see any law enforcement from Ventura. We did see, that's when the CHP, as what Giovanna was just mentioning, joined. So you've had multiple agencies, and for the most part, everybody has taken the same tact, which is track the vehicle. But how do things change for all of these agencies based off of what we just saw between the two box trucks? Because I still don't see any CHP.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of things going on here. One, the unpredictability of the driver, and we've seen that. Trying to pass a vehicle, ramming a vehicle, getting off the freeway, getting on the freeway, totally unpredictable. The law enforcement seems to be in a tracking mode as the weather is deteriorating with rain. Police helicopters that normally would be able to follow with low-lying clouds and fog, they may not be able to. So in this case, it's going to be a kind of wait-and-see game. Maybe you can get some CHP ahead of the game because it is on the freeway to follow this person. But I don't think they're going to actively engage at this speed.
Yeah, and you said earlier a spike strip would be their only possible, avenue of stopping him. But with the rain and the other vehicles on the road, that's not likely.
Well, the nice thing about the spike strip is once it's deployed and the little metal, I'll call them like straws, will then bed into the tire, it lets the air out very, very slowly. So it's almost like a controlled stop. But we have seen vehicles run on rims for a long period of time with no rubber. So it's not a panacea. It's not the solution for everything.
Well, and if you look at this box truck, it's got 4 wheels on the back, if I'm looking at that correctly. So that makes it, is it 2 there on the back? I can't, I thought it was. But yeah, it does look like there's 2 on the back and 4 on the back. So, now that makes that difficult. And, you get the front, okay, but you're going to have to deflate upwards of 6 tires if you really want him to get down on the rims.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, is to deploy the spike strip, you have to have a safe operational area, not just for the deployment, but for the officer who's going to deploy it, too.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was thinking about earlier, because the deployment of the spike strip is not just lay it out on the street and step back safely and watch. It usually is done in between one car coming by and another car coming by, and the officer has to toss it out there. So with an unstable vehicle like this, you're really putting the officer at extreme risk, because if they swerve to miss that spike strip and tip that vehicle over, that could be life-threatening for the officer.
Yeah, and one of the things we're seeing is the weather deteriorating rapidly as they move up toward Ventura County, heading up toward Santa Barbara, Oxnard. So with the low-lying clouds, law enforcement may just have to give this up and just kind of watch on the on and off ramps as this vehicle goes by.
Well, Bruce, here's what we're going to do very quickly. The stream is going to continue with this. Giovanna and I are going to pause. We have some work that we have to do on ABC 7, but then we will rejoin you and we'll continue to follow this. So we'll be silent here for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then we will rejoin the chase. But the picture here on our stream will continue as authorities monitor this box truck, which was reported stolen about 2 hours ago. You might have seen the police pursuit of a box truck earlier this afternoon on Eyewitness News and our streaming channel. We didn't know how it ended due to the weather, but it did end in Ventura with the arrest of the suspect who allegedly stole a Lowe's box truck. He didn't surrender peacefully. Tear gas was used. He tried to take off running, but eventually he was taken into custody.
Yeah!